Quotation from myself, segment 55, quotation number 681. People leading meaningless, boring, ordinary lives often look with the eager anticipation toward imaginary apocalyptic events as their last opportunity to take part, even as the passive subject only, in something significant and extraordinary. 682. Recently I have stopped looking, or rather I still look, but don't see what I am looking at. Lately I have stopped listening, or rather I still listen, but don't hear what I am listening to. These days I have stopped reading, or rather I still read, but don't take what I am reading in. I used to be like a parched land, greedily drinking every single drop of rain. But now I am like a flooded field, unable to absorb any more water. 683. If you make a pact with the devil, do not be surprised when you are treated like one. 684. Unlike in sport, where all accept the fact that the best, athletically speaking, must win and receive the well-deserved reward, in life, to maintain public peace and general contentment and tranquility, everyone should be given some consolation prize, and those who won't have to concede at least something to the losers. 685. There are people who want to save the world and yet can't handle their relationship with the next door neighbor. Some write because it is the only thing they can do, others because they don't want to do anything else, still others because there is nothing else for them to do. 687. Being engaged in a conversation often means wearing two hats, one of a student and another of a teacher. For by listening to others, we can't help but learn something from their knowledge and experience, and so, even if unintentionally, do they by listening to us. Assuming then as a self-evident truth that at least as far as conversation is concerned, the majority of people are basically alike, that is, they accept the listening, learning, and the speaking, teaching as integral and indispensable parts of it. For the normal conversation to be satisfactory for all involved, each participant must be allowed and even encouraged to do both. Furthermore, conversation can easily be looked upon as a universal metaphor for all kinds of human interaction, making consequently the maintenance of a proper balance between these two opposite but mutually dependent, even inseparable roles of a student and a teacher, vitally important for the preservation of both interpersonal and societal peace. This is especially true today in the present climate of widespread education and engendered by its growth of democratic egalitarian longings, when in the play which is life, fewer and fewer members of the cast are willing to act as a student unless they give an opportunity, however rare and brief, to play a part of the teacher as well. 688. As one is getting older, the number of people who care about whether one is still alive or dead is getting smaller and smaller. 689. The intellectual ambiguity, which started as a protective literary device against religious persecution in the Middle Ages, served its skillful practitioner to a great extent quite well. For whatever accusation of heresy were leveled at them, they could always point out the part of the text which were in direct contradiction to the allegedly offensive statement, and testified to their unassailable orthodoxy. In the modern times, when political ideology have replaced religion as the universal oppressor, the intellectual ambiguity was found again to be equally useful for protecting the social position of the members of the so-called chattering classes and for advancing their academic and literary careers. Moreover, recently it has even acquired the aura of sophistication and anti-dogmatic open-mindedness, for necessity never fails to interpret itself as virtue. The few who detest the intellectual ambiguity, either on moral or on aesthetic grounds, and refuse to equivocate, not only are pursued with vengeance by their political opponents, there is never shortage of those whenever one states his views openly, but are treated especially harshly by their cowardly colleagues, for the cowards can never forgive the brave their daring. 690. Being deprived by nature of the ability to bring into existence the real life, men are forever compelled to sublimate their creative longings into the fabrication of its artificial substitutes, such as science, technology, arts, etc. Yet no matter how good a man is at his craft, he never feels completely fulfilled, because his creations are always external to his essential being. On the other hand, it is precisely this knowing sense of essential unfulfillment that relentlessly drives man to succeed in the only world he feels totally in control of, the world of the artificial things which make the human civilization, for better or worse, what it is. 691. While success nourishes the sweet illusion of being unique, a failure brings mercilessly home the bitter realization of commonness. 692. Autobiography, unless it raises some universal questions and tries to answer them by fearlessly honest revelations about one particular life, is nothing but a gross, vainglorious self-indulgence. And this equally applies to whether it is in the standard written form of a book about the whole life of an author, or just an oral story told about some small part of it. One should never presume that others will find it interesting to read and to listen about somebody else's life unless it mirrors, to some extent, their own. 693. The myths and fables, whose roots go back into the depths of the ages, have survived and reached us because they withstood the test of times. And the only reason they did so is that successive generations of listeners were never tired of hearing them over and over again. In the time of the oral cultural transmission, the ancient storytellers would not have endlessly repeated them unless asked to, and with the invention of writing, only those who were committed to papyrus or parchment that has been proven to be the best sellers, to use a modern expression, in oral culture. The main question thus is, what made those enduring myths and fables of antiquity so attractive to the numerous generation of listeners and readers who lived in different times and under very different conditions? Their undoubtedly universal appeal was probably produced by the right combination of realistic and fantastic elements which correspond to the similar admixture in human life. For we never can free ourselves from reality, and yet are forever trying to escape from it into fantasy. Thus the elements of reality, which is always present in any fable or myth, make a listener or reader feel closer to them, as if they were telling about their own lives, the way it is, while fantastic elements respond to their hopes, longings, and dreams about the way life should be. In other words, the myths and fables had to be real enough to be relevant to people's own daily experience, and at the same time to be fantastic enough to create the illusion of a possibility of a better world. For though in myths and fables, like in reality, evil and injustice are always present, unlike in it, the good and the just inevitably triumph in the end. Without the first, they would seem irrelevant. Without the last, meaningless. 694. Beware of those who talk fast, for contrary to the listener's expectation, instead of coming quickly to the point, they usually tend to go at times seemingly forever on and on. 695. Being irreplaceable is not the same as being indispensable. For since each human being is unique, to replace him or her in the full sense of the word by somebody else and yet absolutely identical is logically impossible. On the other hand, since none of us is necessary in the general scheme of things, but purely accidental to it, the substitution one person for another, or even complete absence of either, will just either so slightly change the flow of events into one of its myriad possible variations.